everybody. I don't know about you. I'm kind of getting sad because I've been having so much fun chatting with all of you and meeting so many new friends. And this is our last breakout session. And it was such a fabulous day. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to wait a year to do this again? I guess so. But before that, I'd like to thank all the friends that I've met so far. I've got so many people coming up to me and introducing themselves. And y'all are just so amazing. And I'm feeling all the loves. I have all the feels right now. So I just want to just thank you. If you said hello, I really, really appreciate you. Now, you know who else need to feel all the love and all the feels? Our vendor partners. They have been out there all day engaging with you all. Just make sure that you go, show them a little love, say hello, see what they're talking about and what they're offering. And I know I was very impressed as I walked along to each of the tables and met so many people. So please be sure after our breakout session here now to go and say hello to some of our vendor friends who have been so kind and patient in being here with us today. Okay. Now we are going to do breakout session number 2. It's our last session of the day, and it's our AI and ML session. The moderator is my really good friend. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to introduce you, Ben. Ben Blanquera is like, if you think I have energy, wait a minute, hold on, that's why they put you at the end, Ben. If you guys think I have energy, you wait until you see Ben. He is like my energy twin, and I'm so excited that he gets to wrap up the day with us together. So Ben, he is the Vice President of Technology and Sustainability at Rackspace. And Rackspace also has a table out there, so go say hi to them. Rackspace Foundry for AI by Rackspace, otherwise known as FAIR, F-A-I-R, is the breakout session sponsor and also the sponsor of Ohio X AI Roundtable. That's what they told me to say on the paper. I will just tell you, nobody means more to Central Ohio than Ben Blanquera, so I need a resounding round of applause for my friend Ben. I love him.
Is it on? Awesome. How is everyone? Yeah, you're online because it's after lunch. You're the next session before, but we're going to try to make this a really fun, interactive session. So today, we've got a great session. We're going to talk about debunking some myths, and then we're going to talk about Ohio's opportunity in AI. So let's do our applause up front as we bring up our special guests. All right, so this is what you do. All right, and then once they come up, I'll ask them to be seated, and then we'll do a quick round of introductions. Is that all right with everyone? All right, Sean, my man, come on up. Sean Erikson, Grange and Church, please sit down.
Thank you.
Rob Zwink. Come on. And Mr. Mukul, come on up. All right. So once again, my name is Ben Blanquera. I'm with FAIR by Rackspace, and our job is to help accelerate responsible AI adoption across the state of Ohio. I love Columbus, Ohio, and I love what Chris Berry is doing here to create some advocacy for the state of Ohio. It is amazing. Chris, are you here? I was going to give you a surprise, but okay. All right. Rob, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name's Rob Zwink. I'm the CTO of a company in town called Razi Title Incorporated. We sell software to real estate title offices. And I started my career at JP Morgan. I was the CTO and co-founder of a blockchain startup in town called SafeChain, and have worked at various CTO level roles at fintechs since then. So I'm glad to be here today. Thanks to Mills James back there too for the bright lights. Thanks guys. And for all of the sponsors here today. I've worked a couple booths, so I know how it feels to shake a lot of hands. So thanks to them as well.
All right, Mukul?
Glad to be here. My name is Mukul Saha. I'm a senior director at Gartner. Spent about 20 years in consulting before joining Gartner about 2.5 years ago. Actually went to Ohio State, and last day I was here is the day of my graduation about 21 years ago. So I'm so excited to be back here. although I come back to football each and every year. So currently in my current role, I'm helping out with large businesses, software businesses, and private equities with technology strategies. I cover AI and automation as my core topic. I'm so glad to be here today.
All right, welcome, Mukul. And last, but certainly not least, Sean.
Thanks, Ben. Sean Erikson. As of today, I've been with Grange Insurance for 8 years. And thank you. I run enterprise architecture and emerging tech. Currently, I'm leading our enterprise AI strategy. So it is an honor to be here with you all today. Thank you.
All right, well, let's do a little bit, thank you all. Let's do a little bit of audience interaction. Raise your hand if you use AI today. All of you use AI today if you have anything called Alexa or Siri today. All right, raise your hand if you think your enterprise will have something in production, AI in production, by next year. All right, looks like most people are on that trajectory. All right, raise your hand, close, put it out. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of myth busting.
Sure.
All right, before we start though, I'm gonna say a myth and raise your hand if you agree. And then I'm gonna turn it over to my team here to comment. All right, AI will make human labor obsolete. Raise your hand if you agree. All right, so no one, oh, we have one. We are going into the Borg singularity. All right, who wants to start this? AI is gonna make labor obsolete.
I think we'll do a lot of things which are going to be AI augmented. So it's not going to totally obsolete, what we do as human beings. So for example, if you think about any technologies in general, and you think you're going to put that piece of technology in your production, you're going to solve all of your business problems, that's a dream. That never happens. You have to put together a right operating model, people, process, governance to put it together, right? So AI is not any different. AI itself is a technology that's going to impact a lot of existing technologies, right? So it's a very complex one to deal with, and I think it will augment a lot of the things that we do today. So I agree with everybody who's here that
It's not going away.
No, we're going to be here. We're going to have our jobs.
Rob, you got a comment on this one?
I would add, there's an excellent book called Blood in the Machine, which is about the Luddite movement in 17th century England, related to the spinning jenny, which was a groundbreaking form of automation that made creating cloth more efficient. So where it moved from being a cottage industry to factories. And there were some challenges and some growing pains over a very short period of time. So while I certainly agree that AI won't in any way, remove the need for manual labor, I think it will change how we do some things. And for example, as a technologist who from time to time is invited to present or do some form of training, I can use AI as a co-pilot to help with the materials. I can use it to help with the message and the delivery in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to do as an individual. And I feel like that sort of superpower that it can give people could equate to the same type of automation that came with machinery. So I think we just have to be very intentional and help our teams as they continue to face this type of transition.
That's a great point. So both of you all agree, labor is not going away. Sean, you got a point of view?
Sure.
You want to be contrarian just for fun?
I'm happy to weigh in.
All right.
I tend to think about it in terms of scalability. You asked the question, is it going to make industries or jobs obsolete? Perhaps another way to think of it is, for the teams that you're on in the future, as AI progresses, will you potentially need fewer people on your team? When you look at it through that lens, I think you could argue that it will impact jobs. On the one hand, I do think, though, if you're worried that AI could potentially take your job, whatever it is, if you're a software developer or copywriter or whatever, and you're worried that AI will potentially take your job, I would say that's the wrong worry to have. What you should be worried about are other people who are able to put AI to better use than you do. So to me, that's going to be one of the dividing lines between what we see as an effective associate and somebody who's maybe not as effective.
All right. So my point of view is that, like as Sean said, AI is going to take a job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. There's the starting line associated with competitiveness for companies has just been reset. Because new emerging business models be created, new ways of work are being created, and we know history says every time there's been a new technology advancement, it doesn't take away work, it just creates different kind of work. And a big thing for how we look at it is we want machines to be better machines so humans can be better humans. And because the capacity of the human for creativity and new value creation is unlimited. So that's sort of where I stand. All right, next myth, you ready? Raise your hand if you agree. My business does not need an AI strategy. That's a layup, come on. No. All right, who wants to take this one? Or maybe just say, we need an AI strategy. How do you create it?
I would be interested to know how many people have an AI strategy that is documented and well communicated at your company.
2.
Not very many.
All right, we got like, for those of you tweeting, this is 1.5% have a documented AI strategy. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough to be at a company that very much values innovation. And we've been on this innovation journey for quite some time. And a big part of it was bringing in technologies like robotic process automation and so forth, which arguably I wouldn't say that technology is AI, but it helped to set the rails for us to be able to accept AI and to be able to meet this moment, at this very, very special time. So very lucky that last year when I took this idea that we needed an enterprise AI strategy to our senior leadership team and eventually to our board of directors, they were very, very supportive. And so we now have a good year of experience, underneath our belt, so to speak. And so not to say that there's not a lot more to be done. There definitely is. I would say just really quickly before I hand it over, the way that I tend to think about AI, very similar to the way in which I think about automation and other technologies as well, is that there's really 3 components that you need to make sure, for all of you who don't have a well-communicated AI strategy, maybe you have influence with your organization. In my opinion, the 3 crucial ingredients, number 1 is making sure that you've got the proper literacy program in place so that folks understand how to use AI. Not only from a productivity perspective, you hear terms like prompt engineering and everything else, but there's a lot to be said for using it responsibly as well. So the second pillar is making sure you've got the right governance in place. And the third one is starting with the business, understanding, trying to envision your company as an automated, company of the future. What would that look like? And then using that to help you to understand or to see the art of the possible so that you're identifying real meaningful opportunities for automation and leveraging AI within the enterprise.
I think Sean brought up really great points. I mean, I do, in fact, see the same thing, Sean, when clients are trying to adopt automation technology. The first thing they bring in is robotic process automation. You sort of understand what is possible, right, as far as automation is involved. Now, before you bring in any automation technologies, first thing you have to know what business problem you're trying to solve, right? It's almost like going to a mall and you want to buy something you don't know, and then you're going to run around and then probably pick something and then regret getting it, right? So try to understand first what the business outcomes I'm trying to achieve, what are the business pain points I'm trying to solve, right? And then pick the technology that's going to help you solve it, right? Bring in the right sort of advisors, consultant to help you achieve that. Otherwise, we have seen is, maybe business will go out and get like robotic process automation, try to do things in silos where central IT doesn't know anything what business like finance is doing. So it's better to have a solid enterprise strategy that bring down these silos and brings everybody together, and then you can march towards some of the strategic intent you're trying to achieve using technologies such as robotic process automation, AI, all this in general. Otherwise, the outcomes is never going to be where you want to be eventually.
Yeah, and I'd add 2 bits, which are at our office, I have a copy of a Popular Mechanics magazine, which was the first appearance of the Altair 8800, the first personal computer, and the type of impact that had. I'd parallel that with the calculator, like when the calculator was first introduced and the type of impact it's had. And if you're working in your own business towards adopting AI in a way that will continue to become competitive through understanding and change management programs, a strategy is the first step. So it's very difficult to get a moving ship to change course if you're not all pointed in the same direction. And having a documented, as Eric pointed out, strategy will help. And then the second bit around that is, if you're part of the Land Title Association, I've now had a chance to talk a couple times to that group, and every time someone brings up how wasn't there a lawyer who used ChatGPT and then pasted and everything was wrong, and what about hallucinations? And if you don't have a policy that says you need to do a human review of any generated content, then it could happen to you. And that would be kind of the main reason for having, in my opinion, a strategy is to put the guardrails in place that if you have employees, that your employees are looking for in the first place, but also in order to begin to steer the ship towards a more competitive future with this technology that's at our fingertips.
Yeah, I'm just going to have Rob ask you a follow-up question. We're going off script here. All right. Because you're an entrepreneur, right? When you think about AI, you're looking at emergent opportunities to disrupt businesses. Can you share a little bit how you think about it from a product development and how you can disrupt industries with AI, and what does that mean from a strategy?
Yeah, as identifying as an entrepreneur, I was 13 years at JP Morgan, so I certainly understand like the large-scale enterprise, and then in order to build products that can ultimately scale, it is somewhat of an art, the go-to-market strategy. So in thinking about the application of AI, there's a kind of a matrix of sorts, like varying levels that one can introduce AI, and this is how companies like Razi can put go-to-market strategies together. So for example, a pattern within operations, maker, checker, verifier, like somebody does the work, someone makes sure that they did the work, and then there's typically a third person who's making sure the checker did their job. Introducing AI into those different buckets, so you don't have to necessarily jump right in with it's going to do the making work. It's not going to create the copy, but it might be something that even today, if you think of spell check as a form of AI, it's a kind of a super spell check that it could help enhance that copy or personalize the copy at scale. So, to the question, I think as we consider different products and go-to-market strategies, thinking about it in different levels, where it begins with no adoption to kind of ultimate adoption, and everywhere in between allows for companies or entrepreneurs to introduce new technologies and kind of in a more palatable way.
Palatable. All right. So it's sort of this notion that let's start out with perhaps internal operations, and let's not try to reinvent the wheel, but look at where you get productivity enhancements is a good way to start looking at opportunities.
I think checking quality with a large language model, for example, is different than having it, index a document. Like instead, the person who might normally do the data entry can do the data entry, but it's just checking. And there's that exists in the market today, and existed far before large language models as well. But now it's kind of more in right at everyone's fingertips when introduced with proper change management and strategies. Do you like how I pulled that all together?
That was really well done.
Thanks.
Can I throw one thing out there? So Rob not only is a talented entrepreneur and CTO, he's also a talented engineer as well. And for those of you who maybe are hearing this concept of maker, checker, verifier for the first time, you may be asking yourself, how expensive is it? Are you telling me that for these business processes, I've got to go have 3 different AI models that I've got to leverage to mitigate the risk of hallucinations and so forth? Running AI models, large language models in particular, in the cloud is not the only game in town. And I've said before, and I'll say it again here, if you're only thinking about running large language models in the cloud and you don't have an understanding of what the cost benefit of that is, you're probably going to be surprised when you get your first bill from AWS or Google or Azure. And so I'll just throw it back over to Rob to maybe opine.
Yeah, and I would add so this concept of maker, checker, verifier, and having really AI in two of those roles as a way of introducing change into an established business process. You can use and this will get pretty technical here, but like you can use OpenAI's API for generating content, or you can run a local large language model in somewhere like Rackspace and pay an hourly rate. So imagine hiring a AI engine for $4 an hour versus hiring an AI engine for like 20 cents per 1 million words. And if you're doing, if you're at a large company, I do think cost becomes a very significant barrier of entry for this type of open AI APIs, whereas using a dedicated instance with an hourly rate is an interesting way of thinking about hiring an AI.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. When we had a exec AI roundtable last week, and there's just a couple of sort of just findings I just want to share. One, when we think about sort of AI strategy, one of the things we heard loud and clear is this is not a technology issue. This is a business org change issue. Because if we're going to move forward with really leveraging AI, it really says you're going to re-envision how you do work. And if you don't start thinking and organizations don't start adopting behaviors around using AI versus I'm doing my work and I'm going to use this thing, that you're not going to get the full benefit. So that was sort of number one. Number two, based on the technical implementation, what we heard was if the technology can't do it today, it's going to get there really fast. So let's assume the technology is going to be able to do this. And then third, when we think about the actual implementation of this in your environment, there are lots of ways to do that. And as Rob has sort of just alluded to, there's both sort of ways to do it in a way that doesn't blow up your cost model if you're smart and you're a good engineer. Mukul, did you want to comment? I saw you like leaning over on some of this.
No, I agree. I think if you look at how fast from ChatGPT to we got here, any technology takes way much longer time than what AI is taking. Is because I think from large tech to every single client I speak with, everybody is sort of suffering from fear of missing out, right? So there's a tremendous stress on everybody to make sure they're bringing out the best out of for this technology. And I think this is what driving innovation so much faster here. Also making mistakes quite a bit, right? Hallucination is still a major problem for AI models.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one statistic, like I used to ask Orange, what's the fastest adoption of technology out there? The answer which is like the number of days it takes to get to like 50 million users. It used to be Angry Birds. But then ChatGPT came out, and the wave of adoption because of its form factor was, it was a couple weeks to get to that stage. The point is when you have that kind of phenomena, what happens is you have a lot of people using it, which means you now have a much faster collective learning curve. So the more people are using something, the faster the learning curve, the faster rate of innovation. And that's what we're seeing right now. As more people get on, we're going to get faster innovation rate. And so the innovation cycle with AI is going to be at a much faster rate. Then our heads will spin. I mean, what's going to be able possible a year from now is just going to be amazing. All right, we're going to switch to the next question. How many people here say or would agree AI is only for large enterprises? All right, said no one ever. What do y'all think? Is AI for businesses of all sizes, and perhaps you guys can share some examples?
Well, I think we've got 3 examples up here that demonstrate that AI is not only appropriate, but an absolute necessity regardless of the size of the company. The size of the company really doesn't matter. What does matter is making sure that you understand, or that you at least try to work collaboratively with your organization to understand how AI will impact your industry and your business. And again, sort of thinking of your company in the future. What does an AI-enabled future look like for you? And and making sure you've got the right strategy and so forth in place. But I would agree with you. I don't think anybody would say that AI is not appropriate for any.
So it's for every size.
Every size, yes.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna shift to why Ohio, all right? And we're gonna talk a little bit of the broader sort of scale. I'd be interested, there's this phrase called responsible AI running around, right? In like, what 1 or 2 words does that mean to you? Rob, what do you think?
1 or 2 words, responsible AI.
Yeah, just like the top 2. I mean, it means a lot of things, but like, what do you see?
I mean, like we've used this term hallucination a couple times, which for folks who are not aware, that's when a large language model, you ask it a question and it just gives an answer from its kind of pre-trained context that has nothing to do with the question or facts. I think responsible AI, when faced with this type of technology, then would require that we put some checks in place that can ensure the ongoing quality of things. I think as I think about Ohio and Ohio's opportunity around our operational excellence, you know, at 13 years at JP Morgan, like we were very proud of our ability to execute, like, you know, from the Bank One conversion activities through to, you know, just the precision of execution. And there are a number of companies in Central Ohio, Cleveland, Cincinnati that are as awesome as JP Morgan at doing something like that. And when I think about the introduction of AI within and how Ohio can lead the way, it's around being responsible around that operational excellence and execution. Sorry, that was not 2 words.
That's okay. It was think of it as more of a prompt, okay. And I've opened up a token so you can keep going. Cool.
I would use the word called supportive, right? Because I think a lot of anxieties around what AI will do, and look at the regulations that's coming in from European Union to from everywhere else. And I think that probably stifled the innovation to a certain extent. So if you can set an example, like what we did for when e-commerce was starting out, right? There's no taxes, and that really helped e-commerce to flourish, right? Similarly, I think AI deserved that sort of tax breaks to supportive rules and regulations. So at least it get to its point, then maybe you start doing some adaptive regulations because it has reached certain level of maturity. It has not gone there yet, and you start seeing all the rules and regulations. I think Ohio could be an exception to that and sort of, you know, support this innovative technology.
Okay. Sean, your thoughts?
I guess the word that comes to my mind is transparency. You know, when it comes to, in particular, using generative AI, and in particular, when you're using generative AI to make decisions on behalf of your customers, how do you make sure that those decisions aren't made without bias? I don't know of another way to do it without having transparency into the data that these models were trained on. And unfortunately, we don't have that transparency right now.
So one of the things I've heard, you know, when ChatGPT came out, it's almost a year ago, right? Became mainstream about a year ago. Everyone started doing POCs. What I've heard is it's the amount of translation from, there's a lot of POCs sitting out there and very little in production. I'm curious, what's your point of view regarding what is slowing us down? You know, I'm a big fan of, there's a book called The Goal, which is a theory of constraints, that the thing that constrains you the most will slow you down the most. And so if we think about releasing the constraint, what's the constraint that would release things into production?
Yeah. I would add, so like 2 things we've talked about and 1 extra, which would be the idea of an AI strategy. So plugging for, you know, that's the kind of first step one needs to take, and a documented AI strategy. Second, around that AI integration impact matrix, and working with like a change management program and easing it in. And then the third is being willing to accept a human in the middle. So I think that a lot of the AI POCs come out with output that isn't necessarily acceptable 2% of the time, and there's no great way to know when that 2% happens. And I think in order to overcome that, baking into the strategy for go-to-market, that there is a person who's going to be in the middle of many of these products can help.
I think it really depends on the use cases, Ben, right? So
okay.
if you think about you know, AI-based chatbot or content generation, if you're already using it to a certain extent, you're already probably in production. Based on some of the data points we have seen at Gartner, you know, a few use cases such as I talked about chatbot, content generation, to customer service reps, right? call center is one of the most popular implementation of all time as of now, is because some of the clients already utilizing some version of chatbot, like initial call in or using your smartphone or desktop to reach out to customer service rep. Now, almost all of them have enhanced a lot of the capabilities using chatbots. So it really depends on what you're trying to do.
Okay, all right, so what I hear you say is, like, Ben, read your things, because customer service AI, that's already mainstream, right? That's full on mainstream, and if you're not using AI in your customer service, you're probably behind the times.
I absolutely agree with that statement, yes.
Based on where's the next wave? Like financial services. What's stopping things in financial services?
So financial services banking has tremendous amount of rules and regulations, right? So you cannot just come out and implement some of these things, and it goes to various level of regulators' approval and all that. And also, you're dealing with people's money and personal information and all that, right? So that makes it difficult to a certain extent to try out use cases that you may not have attempted. For example, Sean, you talked about RPA, right? So if you used RPA for invoice automation, right, where you don't have to use anybody in the back end printing out invoices, right?
Yep.
Now you can do those use cases fairly easily using robotic process automation on top of AI, right?
Yep.
So it's really based on use case by use case basis.
Okay.
So I'm trying to drill down a little bit further
Oh, that's...
than the industry itself. So my answer would be really, we have to look at industry level, and then what use cases are mainstream, even now, right?
Okay.
And so for financial services, like invoices is one of the use cases that mainstream. So.
Gotcha. Sean, your thoughts on what's slowing things down from...
I think you said it. When you asked this question, I was going to go down the regulatory route. I would guess that if we polled this crowd, given the fact that we're sitting here in Columbus, 2 out of 3 people are probably in the financial services industry, whether banking or insurance or whatever. That's my entire career in financial services and in banking. As we said before, artificial intelligence is moving very, very, very fast, much faster than the regulatory bodies are moving. And so we're sort of waiting with bated breath to understand, well, what will be the rules of the road in the future? And so I'll say for me, we're taking a crawl, walk, run approach, and we're identifying opportunities to leverage, in particular, Gen AI, in use cases that don't necessarily have a direct customer impact. And by direct, I'm not just talking about a chatbot that we would allow a policyholder or something to come and ask a question directly to, but using AI in the capacity of making decisions on behalf of policyholders. So I think we need to be really, really careful, because undoubtedly the regulatory mechanism will catch up with us, and you don't want to be left flat-footed. So adopting techniques like Rob had mentioned around making sure you have a human in the middle. Also, identifying and evaluating your data governance practices is really important as well. So that's my perspective. I agree with you. It'll speed up.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is just, obviously side of it is new technology. We're all learning.
Yeah.
We got that. But, as we were saying, and I've heard you say before, the thing that makes Central Ohio so unique is the fact that we're here together. We're collaborating together. We're meeting together. We're sharing ideas together. And that can very much speed up the innovation side of the equation. But obviously, that does nothing for us on the regulatory side of things. So, I would say from a financial services perspective, from an insurance perspective, it's that regulatory machinery that is going to continue to be, one of the things that at least will provide friction in machinery for the foreseeable future.
Gotcha. So I'm going off script here, so I'm going to test something here. I'm curious. Everyone here is probably saying, yeah, let's go, right? And so the question is, what would be some very specific takeaways you would recommend to people here about how to get better, faster, and smarter in the field of AI? What would you think about? What might be some recommendations?
Do you want to go first?
I always advise my clients to be reaching out to their business partner and trying to find out the business outcomes, right? So I have interactions with clients who have not done in 10 years any assessment on their customer journeys. They have these customer journeys running the same way forever, right? Business processes have been workflows doing the same way for 20 years, right? So try to optimize some of those things, and then most likely, you'll find some of your existing vendors now have Copilot, right? So you don't have to go out and get something brand new at all. If you just try to take one takeaway from today's conversation is try to optimize your business processes and even use existing vendors that has some sort of Copilot. I think that'll be the least expensive way to get to you some of the business outcomes you're trying to achieve.
All right. So talk to your business partners. All right. What else?
Sure, I'll go. My advice would be to use it. Use it. Practice with it. And not, I'm sure everybody in the room has seen an article that they've read on LinkedIn or whatever, and it's obviously generated by Gen AI, right? When I'm reading an article and you see the hallmarks of a Gen AI, I'm sort of immediately turned off. So I would challenge you to use artificial intelligence on a daily basis, but challenge yourself to make sure that at the end of the day, what you've created is indecipherable. You can't tell that it came from artificial intelligence, and it contains your voice and your unique ideas. To me, that is the skill that we all need to be working on right now.
Great advice. Rob?
Yeah, I would add, when the first time I read the book Ready Player One, I signed up to get the Oculus Quest. I got the developer kit, and I'm still very excited about that technology. And as I was reading about it, I was reminded that the ability to create the Oculus Quest had actually been around for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And it just took one person to sort of challenge that dominant thinking that you couldn't put a headset on that gave this kind of real life experience. And I like the idea of kind of challenging what we do every day. Like when we see common things or common things at work, we're like, well, this is the way it's always been. And in a way that is convincing and it's going to never change. And take those and create a group, maybe a working group to really throw out ideas. We talked about how I'm an entrepreneur. At JP Morgan, we had an exercise where, the managing directors would get together and there would be a opportunity to brainstorm on who's going to come and start eating our lunch. What would it take to disrupt our industry today? Think creatively like that. Have that session with your peers around what company is going to start eating our lunch, and think about how AI can impact it. So certainly everything you've heard so far, but including challenge that kind of dominant paradigm around how it's done.
Yeah, so I love it. So one is relook at the customer journey and talk to your business partners and reimagine that. One is practice it, actually use it. One is be paranoid and re-examine why we do what we do. Those are three incredibly good sort of advice. So thank you for that. I've heard that when we think about the implementation of AI, that 20% of it is going to be like everyday AI. That's going to be things that's just going to come with Microsoft Copilot, things that you're just going to have access to over time. There's probably going to be another 20 or 25% that's come in from things you buy, SaaS software, because guess what? Everything that you buy that's SaaS, it's going to have AI built into it at some point, some portion of it. And then there's going to be another 50% that's going to be bespoke based on your business process and based on your work. So when I think about strategy, one, I almost need to think about it from the ecosystem in how the world is going to move forward, not just how I'm going to move forward and ride that wave. All right, we got 4 minutes. So who's got a couple of questions? We got time for 2 questions. No one? We got one? All right.
First of all, thank you very much. This is awesome, as always. One of the things that's really interesting to me, I do a lot of work with small businesses in Northeast Ohio. Small business owners want to know how to engage, and I think that you started to ask that question. But I think if we think of ways to go deeper, and what would be really interesting to me is to have some business owners up here on stage talking about the business problems, with technologists in the audience listening to those problems, and then coming to you saying, this is how you can solve that. So anyhow, thank you very much for that.
Oh, see, let me suggest. I think just that exchange where someone hears my problem and you have technology folks saying, we can solve this problem. You could do that in your backyard. You could talk to your chamber of commerce. Let's just have a good old hackathon, whatever you want to call it, to advance the dialogue. Because I guarantee in your backyard, there are smart people who technically know how to solve that problem. I guarantee it.
I would be glad to have that conversation, so.
Talk to Rob. Who else has a question? We got.
Yeah, quick question on corporate acquisitions. So both from the buy side and from the sell side, how is that changing the acquisition process? Are big companies looking at startups to have an AI process already put out? Like, should startups be ready to declare what their AI procedures are when they're being applied?
Wants to take that?
Well, I certainly can't speak for whether they're doing that, but they should. And if they're not doing that, I would predict that they will be doing it in the future because that's, in my opinion, that's going to be the differentiator.
I would add this idea of like mobile-first development and thinking about it more from like an AI-first development. So if you're a startup and you don't have the legacy software to retrofit into an AI usage, but instead you started that way. So, for example, if you're indexing documents using large language models and never did it any other way, I would, if you're into like that style of M&A, looking for startups that may have had that greenfield opportunity that you could bring in and ultimately kind of augment the existing systems.
Okay. Mukul, do you have?
I would agree with what Rob just shared. I mean, even if you were a startup and you never looked at AI augmented way of getting things done, you have to do it. I mean, I advise a lot of tech CEOs from Silicon Valley, and many of them have really deep technologies, and then we're like, how have you changed since now, ChatGPT and AI is here? Well, we're thinking about it. You're too late. Anytime you talk to a client, they'll be asking, what have you done, are you doing about Copilot or any of the coding assistant, any of that nature, right? So if you don't have those capabilities built, at least part of the roadmap, you're going to be behind when you go and do proof of concepts at your clients. So,
got it. Does that answer your question, JD? All right. Oh, we got a microphone.
A microphone for a mic. So thank you, panel, for this really great conversation and informative topics. My question, as we're in this Betamax kind of VHS world right now with so many Gen AI solutions out there, are there any that you would recommend for people who are just getting started? Are you seeing the emergence of a select few to invest in at this point? And are there any that we should be watching in the market?
Good question.
Gartner.
well, it's just so many options out there, right? So the way Gartner typically will answer, you're a Gartner client, so it really depends, right? Use case by use case basis. I was just watching a interview of Sundar Pichai, right? Alphabet CEO, and AI just getting started, right? If you really want a solution, again, I'll go back to one of the comments I made earlier. Try to understand your business better. What are some of the, what are your customers are looking for? What are some of the pain points you're having that an additional automation technology can help with, right? And then look into the use cases, and then talk to Gartner, and they'll find you the vendors for you.
I would offer that I think it's a great question,
Yeah.
and it's only going to continue to get more complicated. So investing up front in an architecture strategy that gives you that kind of flexibility over time, it comes back to core principles. High cohesion, low coupling. So when you're, use different models in different clouds, and so forth. As Rob mentioned earlier, you can use local language models as well. But wire them up in your ecosystem using APIs, and we talk about RPA and so forth. RPA can also be a very powerful enabling technology that can help provide some loose coupling between you and your core processes and these models. So don't bet the farm on any single model today, because I promise you, you're probably not going to. None of us are going to be right. But also find a way to innovate and use these models in a way that you're not, forfeiting your flexibility.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Yeah, hey,
This is this is Srini Ramabhadran. I have a question. Typically, like the ChatGPT 4, it says like it has got like 1 trillion parameters, right, to use. Whereas the human brain is like approximately 100 trillion parameters, right? It's possible. That's what it says. My question is like if we are since you said a responsible AI, right? So if you are going to be like since it's going to hallucinate, right? So is there any kind of like like we are building a model, we are actually practicing it continuously, right? Let's say we are actually setting a data. How are we making sure at least like till actually at least for a couple of years, right? How are we making sure like we have some kind of a support system to control regulation standpoint, so that like we do not have a problem about like you think you made a mistake, and then like obviously like the companies which is building this model, and we don't want them to pay for it, right? It's like we don't want a situation wherein they get into unnecessary trouble because of things like bringing innovation and all those things. My question is like how long do you think it takes to bring this to like more than maybe 30 or 40 trillion parameters? Maybe a couple of years. You think maybe a decade? I just wanted to know.
I had a slide if I understand it correctly, like I had a slide once that had like the new NVIDIA rack-mounted server that was around $300,000 that for this type of work has more teraflops than the Ohio Supercomputer Center, which and Facebook had bought 30,000 of them. So and that's something that was announced like a month ago or something. So that's kind of the type of like compute capacity that is coupled with the hardware. So it's an innovation that came out in a paper through Google researchers and NVIDIA sort of being ready with this mass production of compute capacity. So I don't know if I understood your question around like 30 billion parameter models and what does the future look like. I think the future's now.
What I would suggest is if that's a rate limiting factor to making business strategy decisions, take it away. It's not going to be rate limiting. It'll be there sooner than you think. All right, with that, we are the last session before happy hour. Let's thank Sean, Mukul, and Mr. Rob Zwink.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.